Tax season is upon us. The vast majority of recent changes to the federal tax code happened last year when the president and Republicans passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. While their benefits are debatable, them's the rules, as they say, and we all have to file. What's more, there were new changes to the state and federal filing this year. Correspondent Megan Kamerick gathered together 3 experts to talk about changes and how to get help if you need it.
Thank you for joining us on New Mexico in Focus. I'm joined by Richard Anklam, president of the New Mexico Tax Research Institute, Jeffrey Ledbetter, director of Tax Help New Mexico, and Tamara Beal. She is CPA with REDW. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
I want to start with you, Tamara. Give us a quick overview on the biggest changes that came out of the federal tax law a couple
So
years
at the end of 2017, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed by Congress, and the biggest things that happened were the top tax rate was dropped from 39.6% to 37%, and overall tax rates dropped for everybody almost across the board. Standard deductions were increased, and personal exemptions were repealed. So whereas for married filing joint, a standard deduction was just over $12,000, it raised to $24,000, which is adjusted for inflation. So a lot of people are not having to itemize anymore, or they're bunching their itemized deductions into one year or another because of the increased threshold. There was also an increase to the child tax credit. It increased from $1,000 to $2,000 per child, with $1,400 of that being refundable. And the phase-out threshold went up from about $110,000 to $400,000.
So people who make more can apply for the child tax credit.
Benefit from the child tax credit.
Okay. There was a big shift as well in the threshold for charitable giving. Has that made a difference that you've seen in terms of how people are giving to nonprofits?
I think in general, if you're charitably minded, you're going to contribute whether you're getting a tax deduction or not. But for cash deductions, the percentage increased from 50% to 60%. But once again, a lot of people are not itemizing anymore because of that higher standard deduction.
I know that was a big fear among some charities, but okay, well, that's good to know. I'm curious if some of the problems people come to you with, like, for instance, hey, I haven't paid taxes for years. Is that bad? Do you run into that?
We do. There are some people that are timely filers, and they're going to file by April 15th every single year. You have other people who taxes terrify them, and so they just kind of sweep it under the rug because they think, I have enough withholding and I don't need to actually file. And then they'll come to us and say,
they do.
You should.
Need to file,
you do
right?
need to file, yes. And they come and say, hey, I haven't filed in 8 years. Please clean up this mess. But what they don't realize is if they had overpaid and they had a refund that was due, you don't get the money from 8 years back. You only get it from 3 years back.
Oh.
So
Why would you not file for 8 years?
don't ask me.
Okay. Jeffrey, I want to ask you about, you run Tax Help New Mexico,
Right.
which offers free tax preparation for families who make less or $56,000 per year or less.
Yes.
And we'll put information about that on our website. Do you also, are people coming to you who haven't paid taxes, or they don't think they need to pay taxes?
We do. We have a fairly large amount of people that you would think that would take care of business. No, but we have people that haven't paid their taxes in years. And
Is it just because they don't think they need to,
well, I think
or they don't,
in a
they
lot
don't
of the
want
people
to?
that, well, a lot of people that we deal with, I call them life events.
Okay.
There is a fear of the IRS. There is a sort of fear of the unknown. There is a sort of, maybe if I don't ask, they won't tell me any bad news, all that kind of stuff, which can get you in even worse trouble. As you just said, yes, you do have to file every year. But a lot of the folks that we see on the lower income spectrum sometimes have what I call life events that prevent them from getting their taxes done. They may have moved state to state. They may have had other issues. They may have had, I mean, just an infinite amount of different reasons. But what we do is we try to maximize or minimize the damage, right? And so if it's an 8-year thing, we're going to try and get them in there as soon as possible because it's exactly as Tamara said, they got 3 years to get their money. So every year that ticks off, that's one that falls off the table. And so that's for, like I said, especially for low-income filers that haven't filed in a while, we really do want to get them in there. And we, that's not a super common thing, but it's an issue out there.
Okay. What are some of the biggest problems people have when they come to you?
Actually, a lot of the problems that plagued us for a little while in the past few years have kind of dissipated with the new tax laws because
Really?
Well, we don't.
Because it simplified things? Or?
Well, it basically took itemization out of the game. And itemization is just that. Bring me all your items, right? And so
your
all of a sudden,
little receipts
so
and-
that whole thing, bring me your bag of items, right? And as soon as I say, I don't need to see your bag of items anymore, that's one less responsibility that person has, and it makes it a little bit easier in the preparation side and easier in the preparations, or the getting prepared on their side to come in so that they have everything they need. There's not the issue with the exemptions anymore, and so that sort of simplifies our preparation as well. We don't have some issues that we used to have where people might think more about if they can't claim a child, maybe talking to somebody they know who might be able to claim that child. That's kind of something that's gone away because those exemptions aren't worth anything anymore on that side.
We're going to talk about some of the changes from last year's legislative session. Did that impact the folks that you all deal with?
Again, on the lower income spectrum, yeah, it increased the working families tax credit here in New Mexico, and that's a big deal. And that is, but the earned income credit, the working families tax credit, the child tax credit, those are sort of the things that we really try to scoop up when we get the.
People might not know that they can take those.
Right, they don't know, and again, we want them to get as much as they can and out of the system as if you go to somebody who you pay to sort of exploit the system to the fullest extent for their benefit, then we want people who have a lower income to get a same right of where they get the best coverage they can get and get the most they can get out of the system as well.
Richard, I want to turn to you, speaking of the legislative session.
Sure.
We saw a bit of a change in taxes in the last year's legislative session. We saw raises in sales, income, and investment-related taxes, and then the larger family tax credit. What were the biggest things in your mind that happened?
The biggest changes were probably in House Bill 6. That was the big tax package that they called it. And it included the state's response to Wayfair, which was the internet Supreme Court case. 35 states passed legislation to try to conform to the Wayfair decision, and we were...
To tax online sales?
Yes, yes. What we call marketplace legislation, where we deem the online marketplaces like Amazon to be the taxpayer and everyone that sells through them to be sellers for resale, and there's a whole regime that goes along with that. The most complicated of which will be the sourcing of those taxes. You know, everyone wanted... if you buy from Amazon, they wanted you to pay the same tax that you would pay if you bought it locally. And the only way to do that is to make sure that people report based on where the sale goes, not where their business is. And that is going to be a hugely complicating thing. Picture the pizza delivery guy on North 4th and Alameda. He's now going to have to keep track of his receipts based on where he delivers his pies. So remainder of County Bernalillo, Albuquerque, Sandia Pueblo, Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, you see where that's going.
Okay. That is complicated.
We have special rules now for Uber drivers.
Like where you drop someone off?
It's where you pick them up, actually.
Okay.
So yeah, it's huge, and most of those changes are not effective until July 1 of next year. So there's still work in progress. The tax department is eagerly trying to get people to react and respond and give feedback because they need to issue regulations and things of that nature. But they also did a staggering corporate income tax regime change last year that most people don't pay corporate income taxes, so they're not that aware of. But the big businesses in the country were aware of it. And they did some other things. You know, as you mentioned, the working families credit went from 10 to 17% of the federal, and so that was meaningful and significant. They raised the motor vehicle excise tax. This year we continued to tweak the Wayfair stuff. So
in this session this year?
yes, and they extended the investment credit, and they did a few other things. They extended the small business tax holiday, and
Yes, I saw that.
stuff like that.
Is any of this in danger given the rather shifting nature of our oil and gas revenue?
The price of oil is on everyone's mind since the Russians declared war on our budget over the weekend. So we don't know.
Because they want us to stop drilling in the Permian Basin.
Yeah, they're after the frackers, and unfortunately that's where most of our state's budget comes from. So we have a real problem with that approach. But no, it won't affect the passage of the holiday. The governor vetoed one bill, but anything that's signed and passed is in law.
Okay.
So that will not change. Anything that's still on her desk, the budget circumstances apparently impacted her decision to veto one bill, so it could affect others.
Okay. This is back to Tamara and Jeffrey, in terms of some of these changes, what are some of the things people might miss out in terms of either deductions they might be, or credits they might be eligible for, or penalties they might not be aware of?
Well, I think we're talking about itemized deductions have kind of gone away for a lot of people,
Yeah.
but there is an unreimbursed medical deduction that you get for the state of New Mexico. So you still do want to track your medical expenses so that you'll be able to
Absolutely.
take a deduction for the
I
state.
did not know that.
Yeah,
Good to
that's-
know.
That is
Preparing my
that's
taxes
a mandatory
today.
thing on our program is to make sure that even though we don't itemize, I don't need to see your mortgage interest anymore as much, but I definitely want to see your medical stuff because that flows through for us through to New Mexico and can
And
help.
property taxes for
Yeah,
people
and
over 65.
property taxes over 65, I think under $16,000. I can't remember what the cutoff is, but that's another big one for us.
We're indexing that. That happened this year, so that's going to go up over time.
And we were talking about people who don't file a minute ago. A lot of the people who come and see us to capitalize on that property tax rebate right there are folks that technically don't have to file. You know what I mean? There's our senior population that's just getting Social Security that's coming in to get that kind of stuff. So we see a lot of that, and the indexing helps out our population as well. And so, you know, that's a good thing for us.
Richard, the state government, as we know, relies heavily on gross receipts tax and personal income tax for its revenue. There's always talk about major tax reform. How's that conversation shaping up this year?
Well, we've been having those conversations as long as I can remember, and I'm not getting younger. So I you know, significant reform happened in the late 60s. And then, you know, we've done some things in the meantime. The conversation is going to continue,
Okay.
and we can continue to improve things. But whether we get sweeping reform or something for our friends that we call reform is you know, always an open question. But the big sweeping reforms are very difficult to do. You've seen Representative Harper attempted that for a few years in the past, and it's just very difficult, and you upset a lot of interests when you do something like that, so it makes it difficult. The governor has said she wants to do something. It's a 60-day session.
Next year.
The secretary formed a tax policy advisory committee. I sit on it, so we'll see if that's a conversation that they're interested in having. But so it'll happen. The conversation will happen. Whether anything actually changes or not, you know, I'll be guardedly optimistic.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming and talking about this. I think it's really interesting, but then I'm a nerd, so thank you for coming and talking about all this.
Happy to do it.